Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome again for the fourth episode of FiveStem webinar series. This is Shakul, co-founder of FiveStem, and alongside with me today is Mr. Mihir Kapse. So Mihir is currently doing his MBA from IIM Bangalore. Before joining IMB, he was working at at JP Morgan for a couple years. Mihir is suffering from autism Asperger's syndrome, but he never let his disability define himself. We all know that there is a very difficult exam of CAT to join IIMs. He scored 99.97 percentile in CAT, which is a great achievement. And also, he was in the toppers of the entire state of Maharashtra in his class 12th exam. He was ranked 3 in the entire states in Maharashtra for class 12. It's my honor to introduce you, Mr. Mihir Kapse, for the fourth session of FiveStem webinar. Hello, Mihir.
Hey, Shakul.
So, Mihir, since we will be discussing your life journey, why don't you just simply take in those days and in our previous discussion, you just briefly told me that the entire your childhood you didn't even know about that you have autism syndrome, right? Why don't you just take us since your childhood in your school days and talk us through how you were and what you were doing and what were the challenges, if any, that you were facing?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Mumbai, but
Mm-hmm.
we lived in Kalyan basically for till I was in sixth standard.
Right.
So at that time I did not have any friends. So, but I was still social enough that my parents did not feel it as a much big issue.
Mm-hmm.
But after we moved to Palghar in my seventh, the
Mm-hmm.
school there thought that I might have dyslexia and asked my parents to refer.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to the hospital to check, the Sion hospital also agreed with the school that I have dyslexia. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the beginning of when I was actually diagnosed with some kind of a disability.
Right.
Yeah. So because of that disability, so or that I had a few relaxations during my
Mm-hmm.
school period, but not that much.
Mm-hmm.
For my 11th and 12th, I moved to a hostel. I did not face any issues as such
Yeah.
because for a autistic person, usually that is one of the big problems
Right. Right.
living by myself.
You raised a very valid point over here, Mihir, which is not recognizing your disability because we have seen the kind of problem that people with invisible disability face that sometimes they themselves are not aware of that if they are facing a kind of challenge, then why so? So, when in the school you were not able to make friends, what were the kind of situations were there, right? Were was people don't want to be with you, or you just didn't your interest in match, or and then how did you cope up all along your school life all alone?
Okay, so it was mainly our interests that were not matching.
Mm-hmm.
And usually at during my school period, I used to have one or two friends, and that was enough for me.
Right.
So in a class of 60 odd people,
Right.
just a single one or two friends was enough.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that.
Right. 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 So when you in seventh standard discovered that you do have some sort of disability as like say early teenager in seventh standard, was this information even communicated to you that you have some sort of a problem and now
Yeah,
you got to cope up with the problem in your life?
yeah. So it was told to me, and we also initially went to remedial education. Means I did not leave my school, still just on the side, going once a week or something like that to the
Right,
educator.
right, right, right,
But we did not feel that had much of an impact at that time.
right. What made your school at Parghar realize that you may have some sort of disability which your other school couldn't?
Okay, so there was one exam.
Mhm.
So my school was very particular about spellings,
Right,
and they used to cut half a mark for every spelling mistake.
right.
And during one exam,
Mhm.
I had made more than 30 spelling mistakes.
Right.
So at that was the point when they thought that I might suffer from dyslexia.
Okay. And then, since you now knew that you have dyslexia, was this information communicated to your other class fellows as well through your teacher or by someone else?
No.
And was there, okay, so they didn't know that you have any kind of disability.
Yeah.
For them, you are some sort of a loner who don't want to talk with them, don't want to mingle with them, don't want to eat lunch with them or something like
No, I used to do that, but I outside school contact was nearly zero,
that. Mhm.
I would say.
Right. And then how was your hostel life? Since people with autism have to, as you told, that have to struggle a lot
Yeah.
when they have to live an independent life. How did you cope up with that?
So during my 11th and 12th, I did not face much of issue. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the primary reasons for that was during the weekends, I used to go back to my home.
Right.
So that was one of the reasons I did not face much of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So after my 11th, 12th, I went to my engineering college, COEP.
Right.
There, we started facing some issues because
Mm-hmm.
that I could not come back. Like I said, it was
Right.
once in 3 months or something like that
Mm-hmm.
after the semester.
Mm-hmm. So,
So,
yeah, go on.
so there basically during my sec between second and third year. So I'm not sure which.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's starting of the third year basically. What happened was my laptop broke,
Right.
and along with it the hard disk.
Okay.
And that was the time when I actually suffered my first autistic attack.
Okay.
So basically what happened till then was I used to read a lot on the computer,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my coping mechanism. So for any autistic person, we always we always have a coping mechanism to deal with the stress of everyday life.
Right.
And when that broke down, that was when we actually went into trouble.
Right. So, what happened due to that?
Yeah, so at least I lost a couple of years at that. I was not actually able to function.
Okay.
So there, my parents thought that this was not simply dyslexia and antisocial behavior. There is something more.
Right.
We went to multiple psychiatrists. They even conducted depression tests, all those things, and all of them were negative.
Right.
So finally, in our sixth or seventh psychiatrist, he, without even meeting me, he just took my profile from my father,
Hmm.
and he said, I most likely have autism, but he just wanted to talk with me once to confirm.
Right.
So, and the reason for that was all the other psychiatrists that I had talked to at that
Hmm.
time, they were all Indians. So they were they studied in India and they practiced in India.
Right.
So this psychiatrist, although he was an Indian, he
Hmm.
had practiced in London,
Right.
and he was a child psychiatrist. So he had that exposure to autism that
Right.
others did not have.
Right. Right.
That was how he actually recognized my symptoms at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, I know it's becoming easier to catch us younger,
Right.
but at that time the system was not there 10 years ago.
So basically, till the age of 20 you didn't even know that why all these problems are, what were the cause or the root of all those things that you were feeling initially.
Yeah.
And people did, since they did not understand the kind of support that you should be provided, they mostly might have mistreated you.
No.
Okay.
So I think I was fortunate enough for that. And one of the reasons was it's not visibly apparent that I have some issues.
Right.
So
Right.
even when it's a invisible disability,
Mhm.
your behavior generally tells the crowd that you have some issues.
Right.
So that was never the thing with me.
Another question to come to my mind right now is that, is it okay for others to ask from people with disabilities that whether they have any sort of disabilities and they would be like to be helped? What do you think on that?
Uh, you are asking if people with other people who don't have disability ask.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's fine.
Right.
So as long as the intentions are good and he understands. So many a times what I have noticed is the intentions are good from the person who's trying to help,
Mhm.
but he has, as he does not suffer from it,
Mhm.
there are some preconceptions and those cause problems many times.
So you briefly told about your beginning college life and the autism what hits that you've had during in the middle of your engineering, which took a couple of years of your studies. You took break and then you came back.
Yeah.
What happened after that?
So afterwards, I had an internship
Mhm.
with a startup, and there basically I was a programmer.
Right.
Still, I was not actually able to work in a group at that time.
Mhm.
So I was still recovering, but I had recovered enough to work,
Right.
at least intellectually, I would say.
Mhm.
So after the internship as a developer,
Right.
I was offered a role by JP Morgan. So even JP Morgan at that time was looking to hire autistic people
Right.
because so in the US they had a similar program,
Mhm.
and they had hired about some 40 odd people, and the results were very good.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was being implemented in India as well.
Right.
And there were two of us who
Mhm.
were initially taken as a pilot study, a
Right.
pilot project basically.
Right. Right.
So the company did not know anything about us.
Right.
They had just asked a third party NGO
Mhm.
find graduate autistic people
Mhm.
who they could hire.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
did not even have any job roles for us.
Right.
So the thinking was we'll take them and see where we can put them.
Right.
That was how I actually got into JP Morgan.
Mhm.
So initially for the first couple of months, we I was kept away. So not away in that way.
Mhm.
My work was not a part of a team. So it
Right.
was an individual effort.
Right.
While I still sat with the team,
Mhm.
it was like that. So the team was actually the team had gone through a session
Right.
at JP Morgan in this case where
Mhm.
they were taught how to behave around an autistic person, or what to expect, what not to expect basically.
Right. Right.
So that experience really helped me, I would say.
Mhm.
And after those couple of months, I was taken part of the normal team.
Mhm.
I did not really face any issues.
Right. Right. As you briefly touched upon, I mean, before that, all my speakers previous to you, they have discussed this problem of actually job hunt, issues that they had faced during the job hunt. Because especially in India, mostly employers are not ready to, incorporate people with disabilities. Uh, and be it visible or non-visible, it became very difficult for them to get an employment once they graduated. I'm glad that you didn't have to face the same kind of issue, and you actually found out a company who was inclusive enough to take you. The other thing is that you briefly talked about setting up right kind of expectation, what to expect, what not to expect. I just want to understand that you as an individual, how do you communicate this? So, for example, in general, the company might have, communicated with their employees that, okay, in general, this is what you need to be expecting from people with autism specifically. But one person is entirely different from the other person, right? And some people may do certain things, some people won't. So, how would you, as an individual, communicate this message to the management?
Uh, you see, the point here was that the company had not gone to the management. The
Mhm.
management had come to the junior employees.
Right.
So how the management was actually explained by the US people in this case, and they
Mhm.
were actually shown data.
Right.
So in a corporate environment, if you go with actual data and
Mhm.
show how uh, hiring someone with autism actually improved your work efficiency and output,
Mm.
that's a easy sell for the management.
Right. Right.
In the actual lower employees, there the the explanation was completely different. Here it's how to interact. That was what was explained.
Right. Got it. Hmm. Let's take a step back and talk about both your college and employment days. Did you use any sort of accommodations at all when you were in college, given your disability? Because
Yeah.
earlier you were not even known that you have autism, and then you did come to know about it. Any sort of accommodations, class accommodations, academic, non-academic accommodations, or exams accommodation, or anything like that?
Yeah. So basically, once I was diagnosed with dyslexia itself, I got a accommodation of 25% extra time.
Mm-hmm.
I usually did not used to take that.
Right,
It was just a thing that I was available with me.
right.
The second part that I got was I did not have to study a additional language. So
Okay.
because of dyslexia
Mm-hmm.
and its problems with learning multiple languages,
Right,
I I got an exemption that instead of a language, you learn computer studies.
right.
So that was my extent till autism was detected.
Mm-hmm.
So even after autism was detected, the extra time still remained.
Right,
And because I was not in at that time in a stage where I could do group functioning properly,
right,
so the
right.
college only told that they will help me with being what you say in passing, but they
Right,
won't lower their standard
right,
of their education.
right,
So they only allowed me that to do individual projects instead of a group project.
Mm-hmm.
But the quality of the project expected was as equal as the normal projects.
Oh my God. So basically, how many people used to be there in a group?
Usually in a group there used to be four people.
So you were working four time harder than
Uh,
anyone else.
yeah, I took one additional semester to do it.
Right. Yeah, it's expected.
Yeah.
Strict. I see. And so these are the two accommodations that you were
Yeah.
using.
During my work, I did not need any accommodation at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Let's talk about your transition period from work to academic once again. What made you realize that, 2.25 years as a coder, now let's switch on to business, do an MBA?
Okay. So in this case, I would say that while I was happy with my job,
Mm-hmm.
I I was looking for something more challenging.
Right.
So, because after 1.5 years at the job, I had basically recovered, and the kind of job that I would get there at that time,
Mm-hmm.
why it was challenging, some but not always.
Right.
So that was one of my primary reasons for doing an MBA.
Mm-hmm.
So I had asked if they could provide me a more challenging job there, but it was not easy to get those roles there
Mm-hmm. Okay.
because I did not have any qualifications to show.
Right.
They actually could not just hand over some roles like that. It was
Mm-hmm.
so that was one of the reasons that I I attempted CAT basically,
Mm-hmm.
and after the CAT result had came, all of us actually knew that I was going to leave, and
Right.
but because of those results, I was given additional roles because now I had proven my capability.
Right. So why were they suspicious? I mean, you might have performed well within your current role that you were working on, and were there any kind of suspicions that you wouldn't be able to perform well given the opportunity due to your disability or some sort?
So I am not sure the reason.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons that I was given the role later was that a person was moving out and they
Right,
had to find someone who could take that role.
right, right. Okay. So how about CAT preparation? How difficult, how easy, 99.97 percentile? I mean, given the kind of number of people that they give this kind of exams, it's not at all easy to get in for anyone else.
Yeah, so my CAT preparation, I because of my office work, I
Mhm.
knew I needed a online class
Right,
because it was simply not possible to go on a daily to a class and then go to office.
right.
So I usually went to office on a day, came
Mhm.
back at 10 p.m.
Mhm.
and my class started at 10 p.m. So
Right,
I used to have my dinner and class at the same time.
I see.
And that class used to go till 12:30 and
Mhm.
then additional some self-study till say 2 o'clock.
Wow.
This was my daily schedule for 2 3 weeks. Sorry, 2 3 months.
Right, right.
Later, once the class had taught us all the topics, it was
Mhm.
basically me doing one mock exam a week
Right.
and then analyzing it. That was all that I did.
Mhm.
The more important part would be that was that I I was self-confident at that time,
Mhm.
not of this score,
Mhm.
but to get enough score so that see the my intention of doing giving the CAT was I wanted I wanted to prove that I was as good as a normal candidate.
Right.
So that was my intention while giving it.
Mhm.
I had that confidence that I could get at least 99.5.
Right.
So the usual cutoff for a general open category person for IMABC,
Mhm.
19.5, 19.6, somewhere around that.
Mhm.
So I was confident I should get around at least that much.
Right.
So when you give an exam in that phase of a mind,
Mhm.
the half of the issues for giving CAT are the stress. Will I get
Right.
marks and all those things? Those are completely removed.
Right.
And I did not really care that whether I do good or not, because I had a good enough job now. It was like,
Right.
so once the stress and pressures are removed, giving CAT is really easy, I would say.
Right. Okay, so you gave CAT, you went through, and did you take any accommodations again to take CAT, just like any other student would
No.
give it? No accommodations. So you went into IIM, and we all know that how hectic those 2 years are, and you are still part of it. It's your second year probably,
Yeah.
the final trimester. How heavy is it being on you, or your disability having any impact on your MBA curriculum at all?
Uh, so here I would have to go back to my office time, like I said.
Mhm.
So even there, I was away from my home for 12 hours for office and then 4 hours again continuously studying.
Right,
So the IMB life is not that different.
right,
So rather, I would say here there was less effort than that,
right. Okay.
because there at office it was 16 hours of work
Mhm.
plus study. Here you have to put 16-20 hours of work, but not always. It's only on a, say, 3-4 days in a single trimester.
Right,
Otherwise 12 hours is more than enough.
right, right,
So that's how the load factor was never an issue here.
right.
Additionally, the during our induction periods
Mhm.
starting,
Right,
if you are not used to living such a life, the
mhm.
college ensures that you do get used to it.
Okay.
So college ensures that we can at least work. So I'm not just saying of a disabled person, for all.
Mhm. Right,
Because there are a few freshers, they might not have worked in such a fashion.
right,
So that's the reason college ensures a level playing ground where all of us are used to working in such a fashion.
right. Again, any accommodation at IMB, or how was IMB experience for you? Were they helpful? With the disability support committee was helpful, and what are
Yeah.
the support system that they had established for you?
Yeah. So IMB is one of the best colleges, I would say,
Mhm.
for disability support.
Right,
So that was the reason I had picked IMB over IMA. So at IMB, the dedicated disability cell actually had a one-on-one interview with each of us and understood all of our requirements that they might that we might need. So if they were currently able to provide, they would provide it. If they were not able to provide, they ensured that they could provide in a couple of months, say. So that was how we started. So this was even before our college started. That and the only accommodation that I took again was the extra time, not much.
so what's your plan after completing your MBA in couple months? Where are you heading towards?
Yeah, so currently I have a job offer from Wells Fargo.
Mhm.
So that is basically my old role that I had at JP Morgan,
Right,
and add a couple of promotions to it. And
right.
the what kind of a job I would have got, that's the same thing I'm currently having.
Okay, so with
Basically,
an
what I
addition.
was looking at JP Morgan to give me before MBA, Wells
Mhm.
Fargo is giving the same thing.
Okay, okay, fine. This is good. probably the last question that I wanted to ask you, like, what would be your suggestion for people who have invisible disability and they sort of struggle in their lifespan? How should they deal with these kind of situation, and what were the factors that they help you in your life, and how would in general people should cope up, like for our young population which is coming up?
Yeah. So one of one of the biggest issues that I have seen in my interactions with other people, means people having invisible disability, is that the society and its pressure is something that's forced upon. And if that is not there, it that would be one of the biggest help, I would say. So let's say about any disability, if the person goes through a regular college, as opposed to going to schools especially for that disability. So in this fashion, I think the segregation might be helpful for people having extreme level of disability. But if it's not, then I would rather say them to go to a normal educational process, because that's where they will actually build their self confidence and how to function in a society. I think, see, once once that happens, the once you have the self confidence in you, you don't face that big issue.
Mhm.
So then you can do at least something. It's it's what I have at least noticed here. And this was for both. It does not matter whether it's a visible or invisible disability here. Yeah, you're on mute, Shagul.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay, my bad. Uh, yeah, so I was saying this was it. Thank you so much for joining in for the session and sharing your experience, and accepting my invite for a short notice. Like I reached out to you a week ago, and you agreed for this interview. I'm sure many people would watch this interview and kind of get the idea that where you come from, and even if that, and especially people with invisible disability, right? Like getting to know about your disability at the age of 20 is tough. Not knowing what is being happening with you. I mean, these are a different challenge that we all face in the lifetime. So thanks so much, Mihir, for joining us and sharing your experience today.
yeah, you're welcome, Shagul. Thanks, man.
Sure, you can stop it.